Okay, Chair, so we're now live on YouTube.
All right, thank you. Well, are we ready to begin then?
Please.
All right. Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's Local Plan Committee meeting. The first item on the agenda is apologies for absence. Do we have any?
Chair, I don't have any apologies for absence.
Have apologies from
Right,
Councillor Cassidy.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councillor Keane. I don't have any other than that. So, no one else has got any apologies? Right, thank you. We'll move on to item number 2, declarations of interest. Do we have any declarations? I'll take that as a no. All right, thank you. Item number 3, minutes of previous meetings. Do we have any questions or comments regarding the previous minutes? This was the meeting held on the 19th of August this year. All right, then. Do we have somebody who would like to propose those minutes as an accurate record?
I'll propose.
Thank you, Councillor Beebe. And do we have a seconder?
Anthony, Councillor Watt is seconding.
All right, thank you. All right, all those in favour?
Thank you.
Yeah, is that everyone?
Yes.
All right, thank you. All right, well, we'll in a minute move on to our item 4 discussion. But before we get to that, there was one thing which Pauline and Terry and I discussed. A couple of weeks ago, there was the local plan hearing. And Terry said he would just spend a minute or so just to talk about what that was all about and what happened in it. I haven't seen Terry this evening. I assume he's there, is he?
Yes, he is, Chair.
All right, we'll move over to Terry then for him to give that brief update before we get on to the discussion item.
Thank you, Chair. So we work closely with the Planning Inspectorate and colleagues from Democratic Services to ensure that processes were put in place to allow the examination of the Part 2 local plan to become one of the first examined via virtual hearing sessions and ensure that the process of plan making can continue. The hearing sessions were held over 3 days between Tuesday the 29th of September and Thursday the 1st of October, and the examination hearings addressed 11 matters as previously identified by the inspector. This included compliance with the Act, regulations, securing infrastructure, natural assets, implementation and policy and monitoring, delivering housing, other housing policies, gypsy and travellers, villages and rural areas, employment and a town centre. Prior to the examination hearings commencing the council. Sorry.
Just before you could I ask members perhaps if you could make sure you're muted, because we're getting quite a lot of background noise. So then we can, if Terry's the only one unmuted now, then we'll be able to hear him better. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Prior to the examination hearings commencing, the council provided written statements to around 100 questions that the inspector had raised across these matters. Following these hearings, the inspectors have requested additional information on housing land supply and delivery and the evolution of settlement boundaries. The inspector also requested the commencement of the preparation of proposed modifications in relation to a number of matters, including housing, gypsy and travellers and town centres. The next step is that the inspector will undertake site visits over the next few weeks, and following receipt of the additional information requested, we will send the council a post-hearing letter that will advise how she wishes to proceed with the examination. In the meantime, officers are continuing to work on collating the additional information that needs to be submitted by this Friday.
Well, thank you. Obviously, if you've got, well, actually, has anyone got any questions now they'd like to raise in relation with what Terry's just shared with us? All right, thank you. Obviously, Terry will keep us updated on any pertinent information to do with that. All right, thank you. We'll move on to the report for discussion now, the Planning for the Future white paper. That's another item Terry's going to cover with us now. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The government published 2 consultation papers in August as part of a package of reforms aimed at streamlining and modernising the planning system. The North Northamptonshire Joint Planning Committee submitted a collective response on behalf of North Northamptonshire authorities to the first consultation on changes to the current planning system. Essentially, this response comprised strong objections to the proposed changes to the standard methodology for assessing local housing needs. This report seeks committee approval for a response to the second consultation on the planning white paper. The consultation paper is light on detail but outlines 24 proposals, each of which have a list of questions. Outlined within this committee report are a summary of some of the key points, with proposed responses to the relevant questions that the consultation paper will ask. One of the main proposals in the white paper is that local plans should be simplified and land zoned into 3 types of designation, each with its own different planning system. The zones are growth areas, which would have automatic planning permission, renewal areas, which would have a presumption in favour of development and operate with a mixed consent regime, and protected areas, which essentially would be a continuation of the current system of applying for planning permission. In response to this proposal, the Council has raised concern that the zoning of only 3 categories of land is too restrictive and overly simplistic given the complexity of areas that local plans will cover. Of particular interest is Proposal 2 in the white paper that suggests development management policies can be established at a national scale rather than through local plans, as the government say this will assist in the simplification of local plans. The Council's response to this, to question 6, acknowledges that there is some benefit in having national development management policies for a consistent and streamlined approach. However, for the NPPF to be a primary source to determine plan applications, it would need to be significantly expanded and subject to suitable consultation to enable local communities to be engaged in and inform the development management policies against which applications will be determined. Chair, should I go through all the proposals or stop for feedback as I go along?
I'd say more of a summary is probably better. Obviously, members have had an opportunity to go through it all, so I think we'll just take questions at the end. Probably.
Okay.
Thank you.
Proposal 3 is the introduction of a simple sustainability test underpinning plan preparation rather than the current test of soundness. This test will result in the abolition of the current need for sustainability appraisals and the removal of the requirements of the duty to cooperate. The Council's response to question 7b emphasises the importance of strategic and cross-boundary working and questions how this will be achieved without the formal requirements of the duty to cooperate test. Proposal 4 sets out the proposal for binding housing targets to be set for each local planning authority at a national level. The Council's response to question 8a calls for greater details, but cross-references the response of the Joint Planning Committee to the earlier consultation that raised strong objections to the revised standard methodology for establishing local housing requirement figures. Proposals 6 and 7 seek to modernise the planning system and make greater use of new technology, which the response to the questions welcomes in principle. Proposal 8 expects local plans to be produced in 30 months with sanctions if local planning authorities do not meet this requirement. Our response questions the reality of this time frame. Proposal 9 proposes the continuation of neighbourhood plans. Our response to question 13a raises concern about the lack of clarity on the scope and power of such plans in decision making, and it is unclear how neighbourhood plans would fit into the new zonal approach due to the absence of detail in the planning white paper. Question 14 asks whether there should be a stronger emphasis on the build out of developments. Our response supports measures to secure timely build out of developments and to prevent house builders sitting on land with planning permission. Although, and also highlights that whilst the planning system can affect delivery, there are a number of other factors, including market absorption rates and infrastructure provision, that can delay housing delivery. Proposal 11 expects design guidance and codes to be prepared locally with community involvement and ensure that the codes are more binding on decisions about development. Our response to question 17 welcomes proposals to deliver high quality developments that is distinctive and that encourages community involvement from an early stage. However, the resource implications of this is raised. Another key feature of the white paper is the replacement of Section 106 and Community Infrastructure Levy with a new consolidated infrastructure levy under Proposal 19. Our response to question 22A recognises the need to review the approach to developer contributions, but raises concerns that the new infrastructure levy could lead to money being disproportionately distributed and not going to areas where infrastructure is needed greatest or where development is less viable. Also, that not all Section 106 agreements are used for securing the funding, and how can things like in-kind provision and land transfer fit into the new infrastructure levy. That's a summary of the proposals and questions, and it is recommended that members note the report and agree the proposed responses to the consultation.
Right, thank you, Terry. Right, does anyone have any questions or comments? Right, I will mention a...
Sorry, Councillor Dady, Councillor Watt has a question.
All right, thank you. All right, yes, please go ahead, Councillor Watt. Thank you.
Yeah, it just seems this white paper is very unsatisfactory. There's so many holes in it, and so many bits missing about detail that you don't really want to sign up to it. I'm not sure that in Corby our problem is enough houses. It's getting builders to build them. We have a large development that's not even started yet. 106 money, community infrastructure levy, is a bit of a strange one as well, because the government wants us to build houses, and then it wants developers to fund the things for the community out of those properties, and they always become sticking points, and they all become negotiated down. I mean, if the government wants more housing, then I have a feeling the government should go easy on the 106 money or community infrastructure levy, but actually fund it centrally from government to promote these developments going forward and reduce the chances of things like Little Stanion, where there wasn't enough money for schools and the like. So yeah, this white paper is just too full of holes.
Well, thank you. Does anyone did you want to respond to that, Terry?
I think them concerns are picked up in the responses to the questions.
All right, thank you. Does anyone else have anything else they want to add?
There are no other hands raised, Chair.
Well, thank you. I will mention a couple of things because I think it's pertinent in terms of keeping members informed with what's going on. As you probably know, I'm the vice chair of the Joint Planning Unit, so I have been quite involved in the Joint Planning Unit's response to this, and I could maybe summarise by saying they gave a very negative response to the proposals. So it's as you see with Terry's response, our council, the CBC response, there's a lot of things where there are questions or things that don't seem like they're ideal. And Terry has worked with the Joint Planning Unit on this. It's not something done in independence. So a question I had for Terry was, do we need to go into all of this in detail? The Joint Planning Unit are doing it as well, but they have worked together. So that's an efficient use of resources. Although, of course, we've given a Corby specific response. Another thing to do with that, you might think what's the point of doing this? These are proposals. Corby Borough Council won't exist at the time. But of course, what we want to do is do the best for Corby while we can. So if we can shape things in these proposals, even if the regulations come into place after the council has been dissolved, at least hopefully we've had a part in developing the plan to function as we would want it to once it is in place. So it's good that Terry and others are doing what they can from a Corby-based perspective to do what they can for Corby. So we thank them for that. If there's no other questions or comments, we'll move straight on to the recommendation. Terry's already summarised it or gone through it, so I won't mention the whole recommendation again. But so we'll just move straight on to approving it, or otherwise. Do we have a proposer? Sorry, I missed. Was it? All right, Councillor Watt. I thought Pauline said Councillor Watt by lip reading, but I couldn't hear her. So, all right, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Watt. Do we have a seconder?
Yes,
Councillor Beebe, second.
Okay. Councillor Beebe. Right. All right then. And you'll have to tell me for this, Pauline, because I can't see everyone. Perhaps
Okay.
all those in favour, raise your hand, please.
Yes, Chair, all members have raised their hand in favour.
All right, thank you. Right, well, that concludes all the items on the agenda for tonight. Thank you, members, for your input. One other thing as well, just to quickly mention, often we have to have our local plan meetings at specific times because there's specific responses needed to report to be given to reports or proposals at certain dates. So if at any point in the process you've got anything to add or any questions, don't feel you need to wait for a committee meeting when there's not perhaps a lot of time to make the changes that are needed. Feel free to go to Terry or myself at any point to raise concerns, particularly if you get the papers sent to you and you want to make input into it, you know, a week or so beforehand that you'd have the chance to do before the committee meeting, so that officers have got as much time as possible to add to the proposed responses to things. Right, so that concludes everything for tonight. Thank you to members and officers for their work, and I now declare the meeting closed.